Cool.
Go.
When Steel Talks is very pleased to have at Basement Studios Mr. Rudy King and also Mr. Philippe Hewitt. And Mr. King is in the spotlight as the gentleman who first brought the Steelpan to America. Welcome. It's very good to have you here.
Thank you for being here this evening. It's a pleasure being here with everybody, and especially to let the world know what I know about Steelpan drums. And I'm always happy to hear something about the future of the steel drums. And it's a pleasure being here with you today.
Let's start with a little bit of your own personal history. You're known as Rudolph Carter back in school.
Right.
In Trinidad.
Right, in Trinidad.
That's the name that you're known by with the people of your school days. And also as Rock, I understand.
Well, that was a little nickname they used to call me, but my parents never approved of calling me Rock. So, as many guys that I would tell them when they come to my house, don't ask for Rock. Because she say Rock don't live here.
How did you first get your start in Steelpan?
Well,
what age were you?
I say about, it's hard for me to remember, it's been so long, but I think roughly it's around the age of maybe 12. I used to go to Calvary School, and by passing on my way up to the school, Calvary Hill, I used to bypass Bar 20. There was a band, Bar 20, used to practice around there is Bar Street. And passing around there, I stopped in by the yard, but these guys didn't like kids to be around because, you know, these guys were very desperate at that time. All the steel band fighting, and they call them Bar John and whatnot. But I would slip in the yard sometimes, and when they noticed that I'm around there too long, they would run me out of the yard. But I was very interested in learning something about the steel drum. So as a kid, I went home and tried to make my own steel drum. And when I found I could make the drum, I get the other guys around in the yard, like Kim Loy and Ako and Pai, and a lot of my friends. And we decided to open this band. But that time you couldn't buy drums. So we decided to get some drums, and somebody told us about the Coconut Grove. That's down by the end of the river. That the dry river flows down to the sea, and there was a place that they make oil and things like that. So we jump over the fence on a Sunday and go on steel drum. But I heard a story that the Americans were in Trinidad, and they had these drums that they had nothing to do with it, and they give it to the fellas, and so they started the steel drum. But I wish I knew about that, so I could have gone and get some free drums too. But I was forced to go on steel drum, that go over the fence and steal the drum on Sunday when the place is closed down. And then one of the main drums that you need in the band was the biscuit drum. So when it's time to get a biscuit drum, we didn't have money to afford to buy a biscuit drum. We was even selling it. So what we do, we get together in a bunch, about 7 or 8 guys get together and go down by the biscuit factory and hang around for a while until the guy turns his back and take up a biscuit drum. But sometimes these drums now, instead of being empty, they're full of biscuits. So we could empty the biscuit out of the drum, so we take the whole drum with biscuit and everything, and go home with the drum, and we have a biscuit drum. But so happened that we have to keep stealing biscuit drum because the Bar 20 fellas used to come in the yard and take away the drums from us. So, and that's the way how we got up the drums to make the band.
What was your early musical influence like? Who were the people you looked up to?
Well, there was one guy at the time, you know, this was the real beginning of steel drum. And in those days now, steel drum, you couldn't play any melody at that time. It was just rhythm. So there was a guy by the name of Ziggy, which was admired by a lot of people, people from Belmont, people from Lavent Hill, all over. They used to come around and listen to this guy that was one of the greatest, as they used to call him at that time. And all he played is two notes. But he was very famous at that time. And we all tried to be Ziggy at that time. And then we start, you know, as little kids we couldn't go too far from our parents, so we go down by Invaders' Yard and listen to the other bands. But they always doing about the same thing. It was rhythm all around, wasn't melody at that time.
When do you remember that the melody first became?
I think sometime in in the 40s, sometime in the early 40s, they started playing little nursery rhymes and little hymns. And they had a kind of at that time, you know, there was no carnival in Trinidad because it was the war. England was in war, and they banned carnival in Trinidad. So we had the bands used to make the rounds on the hill and come out with different songs as they parade the hill. And the police van used to come up and raid the band. So, but they catch nobody because when we the band coming up the hill, you could see the two big lights. So when we see them two big lights coming up the hill, you know, it's police. So we started to run. And it was fun running, and we couldn't help ourselves going when they hear the pan from when the wind blew on the hill, the song used to come down, and we know they're making a rounds on the hill, so we go up there and join the band. And I guess that's what caused the band to, you know, start to turn into music from the little competition they used to have on the hill, although it was against the law to do that. And by 19, when the VED, which is Victory in Europe, they allowed the carnival, and that's when the band came out and they was playing a melody on the drum.
Were you a member of a band at that time, a particular
Yes,
band?
I had the East Side Kids.
Okay, so the East Side Kids was that steel side, that
The
steel
steel
band
band that
side.
I used to run a little band called the East Side Kids.
Where did you go to from the East Side Kids?
Well, after the East Side Kids, as the guys grew older, we changed the name into Paradise Boys.
Still based in the area?
Still based in Nakuha.
Which is around the Belmont area.
That's East Dry River.
East Dry River.
Yeah.
What year did you actually come to America from Trinidad?
1949.
What was your first stop?
Brooklyn.
What was that experience like?
Well, I met some guys from Trinidad and they asked me about how about opening a band. So I was glad to meet someone from Trinidad that was interested in opening a steel band. So I decided to work along with them, but I had no transportation and I didn't have any drums. So one guy was working in the hospital. This was a guy they called Carl. They used to call him Break Nose Carl. He was working in the hospital and get a couple of drums for me. And where I was staying at my aunt's house on Livonia Avenue, there was a backyard there, so I went in the backyard and sinking the drum. And all of a sudden, a bucket of water came from some window and bathed me dog. I mean, I had to move on from there. So, but I didn't see which window it came from. But I decided to go in a lot, a little further away from my aunt's house, and I made the drum. And then we started playing for little parties, you know, little house party, and we used to get free drinks and food. And everybody was happy doing that at that time. Until people started offering us a little like $25 for playing. And that was a lot of money at those times because In those days, a newspaper was just a penny, and a pack of cigarettes was 15 cents. So you could afford to work for $25.
When did it become maybe like your mainstay from the $25 stage? When did you move into the more professional circles?
Well, after I was offered a trip to make a tour with Sam Manning, he was a producer, and I went to Chicago with him, and we was working at the Blue Angels. I went with a fellow by the name of Carlton Thomas. We call him Lord Carlton. And we went there on a 4 weeks engagement with option. And after the 4 weeks was up, they take up the option, and I stayed 16 weeks there at the Chicago Blue Angel. And so happened that, in staying there the 4 weeks, the first show I went with, the manager of the hotel, the club, asked me to stay over with the coming group. So when that other group come in, they keep me from the group that was going out. So happened that group, the manager told me that we have the mighty Charmer is going to be coming, and I stayed over to work with the mighty Charmer. Well, the mighty Charmer, after he did his 4 weeks, they wanted to keep him longer because he was very good. He used to get like 3 encores a night. And he decided he's not going to work anymore as an entertainer. He's going to join the Muslim. And encouraged me to come with him. But I said, well, listen, I want to stay in this thing here. And the next thing I knew, when I got to find out today that the mighty Charmer is Louis Farah Club. He was very good. I was surprised to know that he quit show business, because what he was doing, he was very good in doing that.
Where was he from originally?
He's from the island, but I don't know exactly what island he's from.
When you were in Chicago, and you were performing, there were other Steelpan people with you, or was it just yourself?
I was there alone, single. Yeah.
And you were known?
I had accompanied by some gypsy players. You know, I just fit in with them.
Okay, so you were spotlighted. You were
Right.
at that point. You were part of a group, an ensemble.
Right.
So you spent 16 weeks, you say, about at
Yeah,
the Blue Angel?
Yeah, I did 16 weeks, and I went back on 8 weeks. I was there on three occasions. And the last time I played at the Blue Angel, I went to Chicago on another trip one time, and with a group, and we played at the Edgewater Beach Hotel in Chicago, and we had a room. Each of us had a room, and we went out to eat that morning. After we stayed a week in Chicago, we went out to eat that morning. When we came back, the doors was plugged, and we couldn't get in our hotel room because the rent wasn't paid. Sam Manning took all the money and he went to England. I was stuck, all of us were stuck. They had all our instruments locked up in the hotel. So I went to the Blue Angel, and they give me some money and tell me, well, okay, they're going to call me to do a show with them sometime soon, and then I will pay them back the money. So then I did. After I got the money, I went and paid the hotel and get my instrument and came back to New York.
What year was this?
That is sometime 1958 or something, so about 56 something.
So about 7 years while you were in New York, basically, you spent the time just developing the instruments and playing out.
Yes.
From the Brooklyn gigs to the Chicago
Right.
gigs.
And then I went on a tour with Massey Patterson that I I went to Canada and all over, like Texas, Oklahoma, and the Carolinas. You know, I made a tour with this Calypso Carousel.
You also played the Apollo.
Oh yes.
When was that and what was that like?
Well, at first, my first trip to the Apollo was on the amateur hour. I went there. A guy introduced the band to the Apollo Theatre, and he put my name down to be in the contest. But after I got there, I went to the rehearsal room. I heard some groups, they were so great until I started to pack up my things and leave the Apollo because they said no. And they had a guy called Puerto Rico, he was taking a crook stick and pulling you off the stage. So I said, you know that being as a stranger here, these people don't know nothing about this music. But I was encouraged to stay because they said, you will do good if you stay. So we did, and we was tied with a group of fools. And
this was about 1956?
I can't exactly remember the year for that, but I did a week there at the Apollo. After this.
Being tied for first.
Yeah.
What was it like that week that you were there?
Well, the thing is this, that being on a stage with all these people out there looking at you, you know, it was frightful, but I did make it. You know, like I couldn't keep my knees together at times.
In the 1950s, I understand that you need to be part of a musicians' union to be allowed to play here.
Oh yeah.
How did that go? How did you first find out about that? And, you know, were you actually part of that union when you went to Chicago?
Well, no. So happened. Well, there was a guy by the name of Dennis Busby that he used to play the piano, and he had this gig to do at the Columbia University, but he wanted a little backing up with a drum, and he wanted to introduce the steel drum. So then I had to have a union card. You got to have a union card. And in those days, if you don't have a card, in other places you couldn't play. So Dennis Busby took me down to the union and introduced me to some of the people that he knew down there. And when they saw the steel drum, they was amazed because they said they have never seen an instrument, you know, like this, you know, that you could play music on. As they call it, the top of a garbage can. But they went and get the president of the union, and he came and looked at the pan. He said, yeah, it sounds good, but we don't have that listed here as an instrument here in the union. So in order for him to help me out to get the card, he said, the only thing I can do for you is to put you as a percussionist in the union. So I got in the union as a percussionist. Because the steel drum wasn't recognized as an instrument in the country. And then I got the card, and sometime after, they recognized the steel drum as an instrument. But for a few months it went on without joining the union. You couldn't join as a steel drum player. But so happened after playing in dances and things like that, that you needed a card, because a lot of these cards, these dance halls was unionized, and without a union card, the delegate used to come and would stop you from playing. So we was forced to be in the union. I got a break by asking the president if he could have the guys to join by installment. So then I paid an installment for 4 of the guys in the band so that we can play in dance halls. So that was, otherwise without a union card, that you couldn't play in certain halls.
So these four guys, were they additional pianists?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the name of the band at the time when you all
Well, I
played
just
together?
did the Trinidad Steel Band.
The Trinidad Steel Band?
Yeah. Because I tried to push, I didn't have really a name of, I had Rudy King and the Trinidad Steel Band, that was it.
And how long did the band stay together?
Well, the band stayed together for a very long time until I changed the name to Tropicans. It's hard for me to remember years, but it's been about, that is like in the late 50s, I'd say sometime in the 60s or late 50s, but it was for quite a while that even the first panorama that we entered here with the Tropicans band, we won the first two panoramas.
How many members were in the band at that time?
Oh, it was very small. It was about 20-something people. It was a small band. Because at that time, that to get good players, it was hard because it was kind of limited here. A lot of fellas didn't leave Trinidad to come up here yet, so the band was small at that time.
So you said there were panoramas at that point?
Yeah.
Kalik, there are a couple of questions that I'm sure that you want to ask Mr. King. Weigh in on this.
Okay, interestingly, I notice you keep referring to the instrument as a steel drum.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Oh, well, that is, by the steel drum, that's what the people call it. Most of the people call it the steel drum, which, there's no other name that I know it by. If you're going to talk about the band of itself, it is made from a steel drum. The instrument is made from a steel drum, so it is steel drum music as we know it today.
Because I notice most my contemporaries refer to it as a Steelpan. And you think it's, after it's been made into an instrument, it still could be called a steel drum, or would you advance it to the Steelpan?
Well, it wasn't made from a pan. It was made from a drum.
You said there was a panorama here in the early 60s. Where was it at?
In the museum.
Oh, in the museum?
Back in the museum, yeah.
And was it still under, was it at that time?
Lizama.
Under Mr. Lizama? Okay.
See, before Lizama, Rufus Goin had it, but they know that it was just for the parade. It wasn't for no panorama. And after a while, when Lizama took it over, they decided to have a panorama. But they had the Labor Day parade without, because the Labor Day parade it was ready in Harlem. And then it came to Brooklyn. When it was in Harlem, they had no, I am the first one that played on 7th Avenue in Harlem from 110th Street to 155th Street at the Rockland Palace. But when it came to Brooklyn, it wasn't run by anyone. And Rufus Goin he just took it over, and it was just for the parade. It was nothing with panorama or nothing like that. It's after Lizama took it over, they started the panorama.
You mentioned your band at the time called Tropicans.
Yeah.
You played in the first, you won the first two panoramas.
Right.
Do you remember what years we're looking at, and how did these panoramas come about? Because obviously they're before the established panoramas we know now in New York.
Well, it's the same people that run it now, which is Nizama and his group, that used to have the panorama in the back of the museum. And the year, I can't exactly remember what year it started. But
remember how many bands there were?
There was about 6, 7 bands, somewhere so.
And your band had about 20-something players. So what was that the average size of the Was
Well,
that
they
the
had-
average size of the other 6 or 7 bands?
No, the other bands would have a few more people than me. But you see, the thing is this, that at that time, most of the guys that was running this band, if you wasn't good, you couldn't play. So we was picking people to play. You know, that guys, because the kind of music that it was arranged by Denzel and Beverly Griffith.
Remember the name of some of the bands?
Well, they
Back
had
in
the
those
Brooklyners, and they had Sonatas, they had Gaby, and what's Panam? There's quite a few bands, I can't remember the names, but they had about 6, 7 bands.
I think it's very important to acknowledge that the whole reason for you being here
Yeah.
is the fact that Rudolph Carter, also known as Rock, but
Yeah.
more importantly known to the world at large, especially the Steelpan world, as Rudy King,
Right.
that you are the man, the person who brought Pan to America. It was not here before that.
Well, I don't know if that's the best statement to make about it, that I brought the pan to America, because when I came here, I just came in a suitcase. I got the drum and I made a pan out of it here. So maybe that if I bring that pan from Trinidad, I might have it here with me now. You know?
But you brought the instrument, the knowledge of the instrument.
Yes, right.
Here, and that indeed is just something that is one for the history books.
Right.
The fact that you could have done that, and that you're still here, and we can actually talk about this, your influences,
Right.
you know, your experiences. What have you seen in the way of improvements from the times that you were here since 1949, a broad stretch of years, to the pan world that we know today in New York? Have you seen improvements, your observations?
Well, there have been improvements, yes, but very little. I was looking forward up to this time to get more more recognition from the steel drum from the outside world. Up to this time, the panorama is still being held at the back of the museum, which I wish was in the front instead of the back, to tell, you know, that it's not such a great thing to me that being in the back of the museum for all these years, why we don't get in the front of some place, and why it's not bigger. It's just still, that's how I meet it. It's just in the back of the museum, the place gets smaller now. We need a bigger place to let the world hear what you're doing here. It's a lot of music that I think that's gone to waste. That people who really love it don't hear it. We just play it for our own people, and that's all. What the other people on the outside? They should, you know, be able to come and hear this thing and let it get as big as it can. We in this country here, and it's still being, you know, hidden in the back of the museum. So I want to know I hope one day it will get in the front of some place.
So from what you're saying, you believe that in many ways it's still struggling as it once did in Trinidad and Tobago?
I think so. Even right now, I remember in Trinidad as a kid, the same thing happening to me up at this time. I used to be running from tree to tree in Trinidad. I practiced under the almond tree. They run me from there. I went under the tamarind tree. The neighbors run me from there. I went under the breadfruit tree. They run me. And right up here in this country, When I started the band, we find a place to practice, then the police come and stop you. You can't play. The neighbors complaining. You know, we keep running and all the time. When are we going to stop running? We're going to have this thing together and stop running. It happened up to this year here with me here in the yard by Rado's band. I was practicing and the people around must be called the police. Then somebody threw a balloon full of water. I'm tired getting bathed out with water. You know, I mean, I was the unlucky one to get the balloon of water in the yard that night. And you see, it's just because we can't find places so that we can do things freely. You have the police come and tell you that you can't practice until 8 o'clock. And that time is not enough time, because by not reading music, you got to get it in your head. And in 2 hours, it's not enough time. When people get from work 6 in the evening and go home and eat and come here 7 o'clock, you only have like 1 hour to practice. And it's not, you know, some other bands have the opportunity with places that they get and it can go until 1. But we're still struggling here. And I don't see in the future where the help is coming from so that we can do better.
Do you have any of your own ideas as to how that situation might be improved?
Yeah, it can be improved if we happen to, well, get the right connection. It seems as though that so many people are satisfied with what they have now, and the things that happen that we should really have in the future, I'm not seeing it, because it seems as though the people who should be backing me up, they're satisfied with what they got.
You think they're pretty comfortable and they have more or less been resigned to this state of existence?
Right. It seems as though that they look into the future. And this in this country, everything is bigger. You leave Trinidad with the intention when you come up here as a steel drum player to get someplace. And then after everybody's still struggling, they can't even enjoy yourself for the Labor Day, this little Labor Day affair that they have. And, you know, it got to change sometime. But maybe that somebody on the outside will look into this and you know, give a better hand. But right now, you cannot depend on the West Indian Association to do all these things for you, because they're concerned about the entire Labor Day parade, the masqueraders and the whatnot. They pay attention to everybody, but they're not putting their attention on the steel drum of itself, how they suffer to go through, to prepare for a panorama. And if you don't win, then you lose all the way, because the money that you put out, you never see it again. And they keep spending, and the money that you win, it only, some of the expense that you put out, you only get back some of it, because it's very expensive to have a steel band today.
What do you see in terms of the performances, the quality of the performances? Have you seen improvement over the years?
Yes, I think the playing has been improved, and I admire what these little kids is doing today, as far as kids that was born in this country, and they just only come for that little season alone and learn so much that, and to the end of it, they don't have not even a little plaque or a little trophy in the house, you know, nothing that they can talk about in the future, you know, and they should get something for the effort that they put. But the kids don't have nothing, and if you, the only way you'll get something out of them is if you come first. And if you have 15 bands or how many bands, and you put in all that time, and you don't have nothing to show after being in a band for 10 years.
What about the documentation of the performance itself?
Well,
recordings, you know, something like that. The kids can look back and say, I played in this band this year, and I was part of this performance that's been recorded. I was part of this band.
Yes, but
you think that's
who have the
needed?
record selling? Who have it?
Are there recordings that are available?
That should be done, but it's not happening. Right now, I would like to get. I played with the Panorama. I played with the Rados band. At first, I used to be with Desper, and now I'm with the Rados band. Well, I, take part in helping them bring this band out. And I would like, if I could afford it to, with some of the efforts these kids make to play, I would like to give them something personally, as a gift or for the effort. But I can't afford to do that, and nobody's doing it for them.
What do you see in terms of the repertoire that exists? We know about Panorama, but you yourself, having been a performer on the world stage,
Yeah.
do you think that repertoire should be extended and possibly the bands could look to have more events if at all possible? Maybe not the entire band, but what's maybe known as a stage side due to limitations in size and transportation and expenses. But are we looking toward that kind of exposure perhaps to bring Pan more into the forefront?
Well, I tell you, it's there out there. This country is, entertainment is number one here. I mean, and it so happened that we don't have the promotion that is going on so that they can have these bands, even the association, they should be able to, after you win a Panorama, that's the end of that. You don't put you in no place for a week, for a day, or nothing, it's just that the Panorama is finished and you wait until next year. All they get is maybe a trophy and some money. What about putting the band in a place that people who didn't hear it could hear it? Put it at Carnegie Hall, put it someplace, Madison Square Garden, the West Indian American Association. Why they don't do that? No, they're concerned about next Labor Day. Whatever happened, they don't care. When I say they don't care, they don't give no attention to the efforts these guys make, and which should be done. It's about time that something, I don't know when it's going to happen, but it seems like it's not in the near future.
Interestingly enough, there was 2 panoramas this year.
Yes.
There was one at the museum and the other was at, I think, back at Flatlands.
Right.
What do you think of those attempts?
Well, I think was something different was coming up. I say, well, this is maybe the opportunity I'm looking forward to, that at least they branch off from the back of the museum and they have a bigger space there that they could accommodate so many people. And it was closer to in a way where people could get to from the other side. No, we was only catering for Bed-Stuy and different places, but what about people on that side over there? And so happened that it didn't work. I don't know what happened. As far as I heard, there's so many different things went on that this last Panorama, it was a great failure. And when it shouldn't be, it should be something that we proud about that happened, that at least, but these 2 panoramas don't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all, because people get confused of where they want to go, and then it comes down that they put the bands against each other. Because when a band go over that way and don't come this way, and they come trying to get back on this side now, they tell you go back to where you came from. It don't make sense at all. So what you think?
Well, let me ask you, do you think that the fact that it was held, both panoramas were held on the same night, do you think if they were held differently that people would have an opportunity to attend both? Like 1 week before or 1 week after?
Well,
I mean, is there any written rule that says there has to be 1 panorama? I guess that's what I'm asking.
well, there's no written rules to say there's 1 Panorama, but why do the people get together and bring it in a place which everybody could enjoy it? Why split it up?
Well, that came as a result of disagreements that certain people had with the Zama group and decided to do their own thing, so to speak.
Well, you see, as far as I see it, that look like they're holding on to what they got. The American, Western American Day Association, they have the panorama first, which means that they believe that they own it outright. But what about the people? Okay, I knew Lizam for years. I know Lizam, and I don't have nothing against him. I'm happy to know that he took part in it. But at the same time, the people are not comfortable with what's going on. The money price can't be more money because they don't have the capacity to hold the crowd. If a crowd do decide to come there, they don't have the room for the people. It's too small now for this panorama going on. No, when it started, only about 25 people in a band. Now you have close about 100 in a band almost, and the bands are bigger now, and they're carrying more stands and everything. It's more costly, and you're not profiting anything by it. And look, I mean, look what time we're in now. There's so much time gone with this thing, and we still, behind time. I say this thing is behind time because in this country that it should be able to pay off. So one way or the other, one time, up to this time is not paying off for nobody because the money that you win, it is nothing. When I say the people who play and put in all this time in it, they don't get paid. And the people should be paid something. Give a further little change after it, so at least for the effort, you don't get nothing.
Has anyone laid those complaints at the Lizama group?
Well, I have never been to the meeting, so I couldn't make any complaint, and I don't know who did. But it seems as though a lot of people are satisfied with just going to Lizama and get what they think that they want. But I would wish that they will take this thing. They will make money, but I think, with what's going on here now, if the people are satisfied, Lizama should be satisfied too.
Let me take you back a little earlier, in the 40s.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned earlier that there was a ban on carnival because of the war, and Trinidad being an English colony, the British had stopped the carnival for that period.
Right.
And you also mentioned that after the war, the bands came out on the street.
Yeah.
And you noticed that there was harmony as opposed to rhythm, which were played before. Was there something going on during that period that there was no carnival? Were the bands meeting? Were different players exchanging information? What do you think resulted to bring the harmony section after the
Well,
D-Day?
I left Trinidad in 1949. When I left here, the bands were still not happy. There was still war going on with each group from different areas. And to me, like, the music was changed after I came up here. That kind of music that they was playing before, which is, I think, was more spiritual than it is now, because they had a rhythm playing like a Shango rhythm in the early part of the Steelpan that will drive you to a stage that you get touchy. If somebody will bounce you while you're jumping up, but you will get offended and want to fight, because of the music. Today now the music is so mild, and everybody is just chipping on, which means that you're in a mood that is not fighting. But in those days, the music was fighting music.
Now, Shango being the African religion that was brought over in the diaspora.
Right.
But do you think that there was some form of exchange, any at all, going on that was responsible for that change? Because it's interesting that you are not the first person. Neville Jules has said it, the deceased Kenny Hart, Oscar Pyle, these are all early pan elders. And they have mentioned that there was this rhythm before the war, and then after the war, all of a sudden there was this harmony, people were playing.
Yeah, because of the music.
Okay.
If you you know, music is such a thing that could put you to sleep and it could bring you awake. That with music, it's something with love. And if you really take into the music, that you could play a record that will get you mad and a record that will make you feel happy. And all come from the music. And to me, that's how I feel about it. I remember the days when I used to hear the band playing, and I was part of that too, when I'm not fighting because I was going to school at that time. But as far as the music and the mood that you get into, you're not jumping up, you're just chipping, and with that kind of music, you're not really getting mad with anybody. But when you get in a music that you're sweating and jumping up, that you're in such a mood that you want nobody to touch you or to bounce you at that time, and it will cause a fight. And then with the rum drinking and the music, you have the devil in the bed.
What would you say, what would it take for there to be further advancement in the Steelpan movement here in Brooklyn? What are some of the things that you would recommend?
Well, we need, number one, we don't need nobody from any band to decide to open a Steelpan association. Because all these people who want to open this association is band members. And if I have association, my band will come first and the other one second. We should have people who run in this association not involved with the steel drum. It's somebody who we can go to and take our troubles to. You can't take your trouble to another steel drum member because he might be in favor of the other band. And then your band, they don't like you. So I know about that because I'm the first one that started the band business here, and I know a lot of people who didn't like me with the band. And I knew my enemies from that time. So by that, you got to, it's nothing you can do about the people who don't like you. But you can put it in the hands of people who will be fair, that will take your part. Like I being a part of Local 802. Okay, good. If I have a complaint, I go to Local 802 and complain to them. I can't tell them another band and all this thing, bring my problems to them with band business here when they don't have nothing to do with Steel Band Association. But we should have a union here, like a union among the bands that we can go to without having association with the steel band members. The steel band members could have association, yes, among themselves to get together at times and whatnot, and get ideas and bring it forward to the union.
So you would say no panists involved in the Steel Band Association as one thing. What would be the other suggestion you would have?
Well, I said before, they could get some people who is like band lovers, that will keep things in order, that you can go to and complain, and if you have a problem, and who will look out for you. You don't have nothing to do that. You studying your music, but as far as joining an association, Steel Band Association, and involve members from different bands, everybody will be out for their own band. And you look forward for the best for your band. If a call come in and they want me to go and play in the White House and offer so much money, I'm going to say, well, you go with your band. I'm going to take my band there. That's my first choice. But if it's a fair union, association that we have, they might have a vote, who we're going to send or something. But these people are not voting for you to go when they have their own band.
Do you think that the panists should become members of, I imagine the local unions now recognize that there is an instrument called the Steelpan.
Oh yes.
Do you think the panists should join those unions and become members of the musician union?
Well, you don't have to join the musician union if you don't have any work. But if you know you're going to be you're going that way, you want to make yourself a professional steel drum player, don't wait until the time comes when you're going to ask you for a card. Go and join the union. So whenever they call for a card, that you have a card that you can make the gig. But if you don't have that card, then you have to get money now to go and join the union so you can make this gig. The Steel Band Association wouldn't be able to help you.
So you would recommend that individual planners become members of the musicians?
I will recommend that for their own safety and own security, if in case that in the future they get something good to do. Because they say that the panning, we're getting no place and we ain't do. But what we doing? We're not protecting ourselves as far as if something good come up that we can do it. You know, if you offer a steel drum player to go on a recording with a professional group, don't care how good you are, you can't do the recording because to get paid, you got to go and collect your money locally too.
Now, why do you think the panelist doesn't know that, or if they do know it, they don't want to be a part of the musicians?
Well, a lot of fellas satisfied with it. They say, well, look, what I want to be in the union for, I only play pan for Labor Day. You know what I mean? So they're just a pan player. They're just playing pan and they don't care about the future but they talk about the future, but they don't care about doing the things. But when the time comes, that they prepare themselves to have a card. It's good to have the card. You don't know what could happen. At times, something might come up, and then you need the card, and then it's, you know, you don't have it. If the association, they want to open a Steelpan association, try to get involved with them locally too, and see if you could be like a little branch off from there. You know, but we ain't going into that. Then if you bring up that thing with some of the guys, they will give you no attention. You know, because they're satisfied with what's going on now. But if we have to really deal with the future, we got to look out for the generation that is coming up. And they have so many little kids playing pan.